Welcome to a world without glamour, of long, dark days, 5-year plans, bread queues and totalitarian austerity. A world of dereliction and despair, where this car is considered the last word in luxury. People wait years to own one. Welcome to the world of the Lada. But the lackluster Lada began life very differently. It was designed not in Mother Russia, but in the well-heeled West. A car meant for a different era, different lifestyle, different people. It was lively, personable and exciting. It had verve, brio and charisma. Such a promising start. When Fiat launched their 124 of 1966, it was showered in praise. A square-jawed saloon with a friskiness lacking in contemporary Cortinas. Surprisingly quick, even the 1200 could crack 90 and turned out 60 eager horses. And underneath the sheet metal were coil springs, disc brakes and a nimble chassis. The 124 had the lot. After all, it was Italian. But while the Italians were serenading their new people's car, a dark deal was being done to banish it to the Bolsheviks. The Kremlin was desperate to kickstart its ailing economy with a new industry. So when Palmiro Togliatti, leader of the Italian Communist Party, suggested there might be something in Fiat's cupboard, a deal was done. With Fiat's help, 48,000 workers grafted for 3 years, pumping £820 million into the biggest car plant in Russia. And with comradely gratitude, they christened their new industrial heartland after the man who made it possible, Togliatti. When it opened its doors in 1970, the Volsky Auto Works built just 28,000 cars. By 1974, it was turning out 600,000 a year.
And this was the result, called the Zahugli at home, but forever known everywhere else as Lada. Russian engineers were more used to designing tanks and combine harvesters, worked very hard to put their own special mark on their reconstituted Fiat.
With the suspension raised to clear rough Russian roads and a body made from thick Soviet steel, the Lada's centre of gravity mushroomed. The Fiat's delicate handling had become lumpen and crude.
They thought that by making the brakes out of aluminium, it would make the car lighter and more sportive. What they didn't realise was that when it comes to a Siberian winter, what freezes faster than steel? Aluminium, comrade. But saddest thing of all, they toiled for hours, reprofiling a fancy new overhead camshaft, the result of which was a piffling extra 2 horsepower.
In their well-meaning attempts to prepare the Lada for the very worst Mother Russia could throw at it,
Lada had sucked the very life out of it.
The Lada was launched in Britain in 1974 to faint praise. It looked drab, dated and primitive. The ad men did their best with brochures trumpeting that Ladas made other cars seem unnecessarily overcomplicated. It was sold on simplicity, economy and price. But it had a toolkit to shame a Rolls-Royce. There was an army surplus hand pump for blowouts in Bukhara, a handheld inspection lamp for mishaps in Murmansk, a starting handle for cranking in the Caucasus, and even a little nozzle for clearing out your carburetor in Kiev.
Well, about 22 years ago, we had a brochure delivered into the door and advising the importing of the Ladas into England, into Bridlington. It was going to be the main factory. And my boyfriend was with me, and he's very conversant with cars and very knowledgeable. And when he had a look and saw the layout, the technique and everything about it, he was quite impressed. And in fact, the agent very jokingly said that really the car was as a poor man's Rolls-Royce. I don't think that would please the Rolls-Royce owners very much. It is rather sluggish, I have found, for present-day driving, and so I've had a Weber's carburettor fitted, and at the first going off it was running away with me, and now I still have to be careful because of its speed.
Well, my mum bought this car originally 9 years ago to do the school run, because there was 4 kids and all the school bags. It's got a massive boot and it was perfect for their job. It was painfully embarrassing for me at that time, obviously being 10, 11 years old. When I got to 18 years old, it wasn't any less embarrassing, except I got to drive it around. Being a student up in Sheffield, I do get a lot of the jokes. You get the jokes all the time. The jokes do occasionally stop when my friends want to lift down to Thruxton to see the touring cars the weekend. I mean, this is perfect for the job. You can take 35 stone worth of floats, 2 tents, 3 big bags. Can't really complain there.
Well, the reason I bought my first Lada was I hadn't got a lot of money. I bought it from the car auction. 2 years later it was still running. So I thought, you know, this is good value, so I thought I might as well go in for a new one.
I'm not as in love with them as what George is. I find them a bit heavy for me to drive. But we do have a daughter, Kerry, who's quite embarrassed to be seen in it. But I did buy him his number plate and I did have things done to it for him because he loves it.
I'm a wagon driver by trade, and there isn't a lot of difference between driving my good old truck and Bet's here. You know, they're both heavy on the steering, they're both rattly old sheds, but they're all reliable. That's all that matters to me.
Well, I'll be honest, I have tried very hard to love the Lada, and I have driven them. But I have to tell you, that sense of warm approval has always escaped me, and I think it probably comes down to the driving experience, which, let's be honest, isn't much cop. This cabin has all the ambience and comfort of a social security office. The engine, it makes a noise like the Industrial Revolution. The whole thing rides like a tin tray full of crockery. Even back in 1974, when it was first launched in this country, it must have made the Austin Allegro look and feel like a little Jaguar. But that is to judge it too harshly, because we need to put the Lada in context. We need to understand that it was built to survive a Siberian winter, made out of recycled tractor parts, designed to be driven by Russian peasants who would think nothing of wringing the necks of 15 chickens before breakfast on roads that were really just a collection of concrete blocks thrown together, where the nearest garage could be a mountain range away. And in that respect, it does its job. It is quite a robust little car. The steel is quite thick. The mechanicals, if you maintain them, will last. But the thing which I find completely compelling about the Lada, the thing which fascinates me most of all, is that there is this huge factory in Russia in which the one end takes the raw materials, potentially quite valuable ones, steel, brass, copper, glass, rubber, and out the other end comes this.
I first became involved with Ladas as a matter of necessity rather than choice, because I needed cheap transport quickly. And after I'd been driving my first one for a couple of months, I realised that all the stuff that people have been saying about them was a load of bilge, really, and they were a very sort of friendly, basic, simple, reliable, rugged and, dare I say, comfortable machine.
Basically, I'm not a Lada nut. 8 years ago, I was relocated by my company and I had £3,300 to spend, so I thought I'll buy a Lada because it's got 4 doors, rear-wheel drive, and it's large enough for me. And basically, it's just an A to B car, and I've done 85,000 miles on it, and it's still going strong. So why change it? You know, I'm going to keep it till it's 100,000 miles and then send it back to Russia.
I've had 4 over the last 12 years. And one thing I can say about them is that they bring your sense of humour on. You become master of the snappy comeback.
The great thing about it is, no matter where you leave it, it's there when you get back.
By the late 70s, the British motoring public were voting with their feet. It was nada to the Lada. Things weren't looking very rosy for the former Fiat. So in 1983, in desperation, they gave the old dog a facelift, but it was too late. By then, Ford had fielded their swish new Sierra with its bold aero look, next to which the sorry old Lada looked like something scribbled by a 5-year-old. Worse still, the jokes were piling up to shoulder height. The Lada had become a comedy turn. No stand-up comedian worth his sequin jacket would dare to appear on stage without the usual list of Lada one-liners. A few styling tweaks weren't going to silence a chorus of cackling critics. But there was the odd person who took their Lada very seriously indeed.
Well, the car's got standard Lada block, bored out to 1710 cc's, Lotus pistons, all matched up and balanced, tough trotted crank, big valve head, Jan speed exhaust and Weber fuel injection with 40mm throttle body. So she's a goer. She puts out about 150 horsepower, close to 110 at the wheels. That's good for the old burnout. Speedo goes round to 110. I expect we can start on 0 again. It's lowered suspension and gas shocks, but it's standard looking from the outside, so it just adds to the enjoyment. You know, I love to see people's faces when you leave them at the lights. Sold it standard and new to the chap first owner in 1990 and watched him modify it and spend all the money on it. Close on £15,000 he spent on the car. That's not including buying the car, so all in all it stood him in about £20,000. Which is so mad. I mean, who would spend all that money on something like this? I always said to him if he wanted to sell it that he should ring me up, and he did. Always makes me chuckle that I was selling a 92, doing my best, and then when I was self-employed, I'm buying them back as quick as I can to export them to Russia.
And of course, for the terminally insane, there is this.
Peter Hayes hasn't only won his class several times, he's won an entire rally championship. Fancy that.
It's mad. Now the obvious question, Pete, is why? Why a Lada?
Well, as you can see, they take the paces pretty well. Like a normal car would have brought by now. So we thought, why not be the underdog and have a nice Lada?
So you're saying to me that these cars are as strong as oxes?
Well, we hope so.
We do. We do very much indeed. But you said underdog. Don't you do it just because everybody laughs at the Lada? Are they really strong?
Well, we're trying to find out.
But it must cost you more than the car is worth to prepare.
Maybe. Yeah, very much more than the car's worth.
I'm in a Lada with a madman.
So you heard it here first. There are some Ladas that are tougher than Mike Tyson, from whichever way you look at them. How do we get out of here?
But most Ladas never reached such dizzy heights. Often bought by innocents who'd never owned a new car before, dealers saw them coming and did them up like kippers.
Do you know what that is, love? It's a joke or a story. All I want from you 400 quid cash. That's all I want from you. Now, I know that sounds like a lot out of your cat food budget, but £400, you've got yourself a brand new. The rest, 25% interest.